Greetings and welcome to Pinball Help. Here I am today and we're looking at the underside of a Bally Black Rose pinball machine. This is one of the earlier dot matrix display solid state games. And I just picked this up recently. I still haven't, this is the first time I've actually pulled the playfield up to look at it. I need to probably do a first look video, but I wanted to go over one thing in the game that I've discovered here. We were getting some bizarre error messages saying that there's some stuff wrong with the flippers. So I pulled the playfield up to take a look and see what the condition of the flippers are. So this may be a general flipper maintenance video too. So here we have, this is the right flipper and the left flipper. The right flipper, let me back this off a little bit. You can see. Okay, we've got our right flipper here. Got our left flipper here. Let's take a close-up of the right flipper first and I'll show you what I'm looking at. Now I'm sure most people that have had pinball games for a while, they're familiar with the makeup of these games. You have this coil, which is also known as a solenoid, which is basically a big honking electromagnet, and when it's energized it sucks this metal piston here into the coil, which is attached to a flipper bat, which up top makes the flipper flip. So when it sucks it in, the flipper goes up like that. And so this is the underside of the playfield. Now there's two portions to the flipper coil here. There's a high power and a low power thing, and the reason for that is you need a lot of power to throw that steel ball around, but once the flipper is upright, you don't need that high power. So there's a section of this coil which is a much more powerful electromagnet that heats up faster and is more powerful and will throw the ball. And that's initially fired, and then when the flipper reaches the full upright position, you'll see there's a little armature right here, and that hits this leaf switch and it closes these contacts. You see there's two contacts right there, so when this thing goes up, it closes that contact. That's called the end of stroke switch. What that does is it tells the machine to flip from the high power portion of the coil to the low power portion. Now, if there's something wrong with this, the high power portion of the coil will stay on, and it's not designed to be on continuously, so it can overheat and actually burn up and melt the coil and cause damage to the machine, short out, blow the transistors on the driver board, etc. So you want to have the end of stroke switch adjusted so that when the flipper is almost upright, it switches and closes that little switch right there. See, there it is. Now this is kind of weirdly rigged. I'm not even sure if this is an original leaf switch that belongs here for the coil. And also, there's a couple things wrong with this flipper. First off, you see that? You see how it wiggles like that? I have reason to believe that the little plastic piece in here that the flipper bat fits into is cracked, so that's going to probably need to be replaced. This thing shouldn't move this much like that. It should be nice and tight, so it wiggles around a little bit, so I think the flipper bushing is cracked. So that'll have to be replaced. And probably the most common problem with these pinball machines, flippers, is the pistons get gunked up with all kinds of this black dust and dirt, and so it doesn't go smoothly. So the flippers get really sluggish and slow, or sometimes they stick and they don't come back out. And we've got definitely some problems. So these flippers are going to have to be taken apart and rebuilt. And they're pretty easy to do. And I'll go over that. Now let's go look at the other flipper. So let me move the camera over to the other flipper. And this is the left flipper. And I'll move my light over here. Okay. Now this similar configuration. See, here's our end of stroke switch right there, and when the flipper is fully upright, it closes the contacts right there in the two switch. This one looks proper, whereas the other one looks like what we've got is we've got two left end of stroke switches on the machine. You see how this thing is here on the other side? That's the way it should be. So I actually think or this the other end of stroke switch is something else that they've modified and stuck in here. We're going to have to take a look at that. Now another thing that's odd on this one, see this flipper bushing doesn't move as much. This spring, I don't know where this spring came from, but it's definitely the wrong spring. It's way, way, way heavy. So, I mean, this is the wrong spring. So that's a problem. We're going to have to rebuild this and put the right parts in here. And we'll clean all these contacts, make sure everything works properly. That's going to have to be fixed. And then, just looking over the game, I see another problem. And this is just shoddy. See the wiring right there? You've got one wire that's actually exposed, that's just twisted together, and then you have another one where you've got a little crimp connector on it. That stuff should be soldered, and you should have some heat shrink tubing over it so it's nice and smooth and it's not going to short against anything. The way it is right now, this wire right here could touch against a metal part or something and cause all sorts of problems. So that's bad. We're going to have to pull this out, and we're going to have to fix that. All some minor stuff. Now this game also has a third flipper. Let's take a look at the third flipper, which is the reason why I pulled the game out in the first place. And see if you notice what's wrong with this one. Every single flipper has something wrong with it. Take a look at this. It appears to have the right spring. The bushing is a little wiggly, but it's still within tolerances. Obviously it's going to need to be cleaned. I don't see any bad problems with any of the wires, but I do see something wrong. Do you spot what's wrong? Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay. What's different about this flipper than the other ones? Did you get it? The end of stroke switch is completely different. On the other two flippers, the end of stroke switch is normally open, and when the flipper is all the way up, then it's closed. Here it's exactly the opposite. Here the end of stroke switch is normally closed, and then when the flipper's energized, it breaks it and is normally open. So that's bad. What this means is that basically the low power portion of the flipper is the only thing that's mainly used until it gets to the very end, and then it switches to the high power thing. So if you held this upper flipper on for an extended period of time, it might melt the coil. It looks to me what they've done is they basically put this on backwards. This should be flipped around 180 degrees, and it should be the other way around, so that instead of this breaking it, this should be slightly bent apart and it should be pushing it against it. So I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to take this out and we're going to turn it around and put it back in, and then just bend it ever so slightly so that it'll be normally open, and then when the flipper energizes it'll be closed. So whoever put that flipper together actually did it wrong. Luckily it didn't burn up the coil. The coil still works. The game was nice enough to say the upper flipper end of stroke switch is stuck closed. So it told me there was something wrong with the wiring there. So that should be a relatively minor issue. We're just going to pull this thing apart, and we're gonna replace that, or rebuild all three flippers. So I'll probably go into, I guess, Flipper Rebuilding 101 in this video series. So stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave comments and visit the main site pinballhelp.com. Thanks for watching.